Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming to the presentation. For me, this is the first time at scale, and I've been having a blast here. The organizers, as well as the community, has made this event such a huge event and a successful one. Thanks again for coming. All right, as you can tell from my accent and just by looking at me, I'm actually from Sweden. Just kidding. I'm actually from India. And let me take you back to a time when a long time back, actually, when I did my undergrad in India. I was, I used to remember, I still remember actually, that I used to love going to the computer labs. That was my passion. But unfortunately, in my university, for my class, we were allowed to go to the lab only on Tuesdays between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Things are a lot better now, but back then it wasn't the case. And I had to find a way to make my way into the lab at that time and get a computer and do whatever I want to do and then come out. It was very constraining, but at the same time, I kind of learned how to make it work in that environment. Then I moved on to US, where I wanted to do my master's. And here, the first thing I did is, at the registration desk, I asked about, okay, what is the lab schedule? The registration day was coincidentally on a Tuesday, and they said, okay, here you go, here are the keys to the lab. And I was like thinking, I was shocked. Really? So no, not only do I have to come on Tuesdays between 4 and 6, I have to come here, get the keys every time, and then return it after I use the lab? Like, that's ridiculous. That's worse than the public restrooms and gas stations. This is how I was thinking. And then the lady clarified to me and said, well, no, you get to keep the keys. You can use the lab anytime you want. This is just like your facility. I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is dope, y'all. Peace. Actually, I said it more like, thank you, madam. Really appreciate it. But you get the point. You get the point. So I collected the keys. I was super happy. I was doing my happy walk to the class, and I was thinking, in India, the safest place to sit in a classroom is the last row next to the back wall. So that it's like you don't see the professor, and the professor doesn't see you. It's a good setup that way. It's like the lions marking their territories, if you will, where you don't ask the professor any question. The professor doesn't bother you. You just get your degree done, get the heck out, all done. All right. But I stepped into the U.S. classroom, and I was looking for the last row, and it happened to be the highest row in the entire room. The room's kind of elevated. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? This is like a zoo animal, a lion from the zoo getting exposed to the forest animals now. So I was like, I remember thinking the very first day, I'm screwed. So basically, I had figured out a way to learn about learning in India. And when I came to the US, I had to unlearn everything I had learned about learning and then relearn the ways to learn here. Given that I used the word learn like 50 times in the last 10 seconds, you guys probably figured out I'm going to talk something about lessons learned. Yes. My name is Gajendran. I'm from the Ticketmaster team, and I'm here to talk about lessons learned by doing DevOps at scale. At scale. All right, that was complete coincidence. Anyways, as soon as I mentioned Ticketmaster to people, there's a popular question that comes up. Let me throw it out there, clear up the air. I'm sorry, I cannot get you free tickets. Terribly sorry about that. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. Obviously, I'm going to set the stage, give you some idea about I don't know why the slide's automatically moving. Give you some idea about why Ticketmaster is special, what's our environment, where we come from, and all that. And then I'm going to take you through our DevOps performance. And then finally, I will also take you backstage to show some lessons learned, things that we picked up along the way. All right, let me pause at this moment and tell a little bit about what this talk is not about. Actually, let me show a little bit of code. I'm showing the code just to show that I'm not going to show the code in the presentation. It's because, trust me, I've looked for programmatic ways to solving DevOps in your enterprise scale, but there isn't any. So if you're looking for starting a great open source project, to address a market segment that has not been fulfilled yet, untapped opportunity, go for this. Programmatic solution for DevOps for enterprise. And it is a project that will not get you anywhere. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Slides moving automatically. Let me fix this. It should be back now. Okay, so let's get going. So who are we? We are Ticketmaster. As soon as you think of the name, you think of tickets, and these are people that sell tickets, right? But what we actually do is we connect fans to great experiences. That we kind of bring them together, and that's the specialty. And basically what it takes is a deeper understanding of what the fans' needs are and what their preferences are, profiles are, and then matching them to the right opportunity. So let's take the experience, like even 10 years back. Like how was the ticket buying experience back then? So some friend in your neighborhood probably told you, hey, there's a big show coming up, and then you wake up that morning, box office opens around 10 o'clock, so you go stand in the line. As you walk into that place where they have all these counters, your mind makes split-second decisions as to, okay, there are 50 people in each line, this line moves at this rate, so I'm going to get my ticket faster if I go to line number 3. So your mind makes these complicated decisions very quickly, and then you pick a line using probability expectation that you're going to get the ticket faster than the other guy, right? As you are in this line, and the line progresses slowly, you start to wonder, okay, am I going to get the ticket when I reach the front of the line? You're anxious, you're just waiting. But the guy in front of you, as you reach closer to the counter, guy in front of you picks up the phone and start talking on his cell phone. And you wonder, what? Just get out already, get out of my way, right? And then he goes to the counter, he buys his ticket. At some point, he picks up his big bag and then pulls out his checkbook and starts asking, who should I address this check to? And then, can you spell this for me? Oh, it's like, come on, just get out already. Please don't judge me. I think all of you have been in that spot where you have somebody in front of your line just blocking the traffic. So just compare that experience to what it is right now with Ticketmaster. Now, you don't even have to worry about which shows to go to. In fact, Ticketmaster makes those recommendations for you. And then when you could buy it at the convenience of your home. And then it is also verified tickets, meaning if you buy a ticket from Ticketmaster, it's guaranteed that you will enter the venue. And once you're in the venue, we also sell technology solutions to enable you to order in-venue solutions like you could order food and beverages from your seat right to be delivered to your seat. So things like that. So we have a wide range of technology and products that we offer, and that's what makes our company unique. Now, we've been doing this for over 40 years, so you could think of us as not just Ticketmaster, but it's more fair name I would call as the Experience Masters. All right? So, our technology view. So we have a wide range of technologies. This is a company that's been around for 40 years, like I said. So we even have VAX computers, actually not the physical ones. Looks like they don't sell it anymore. But we have VAX emulators running on Linux machines on which we run a small piece of our software. And that's on one end of the spectrum. On the other side, we have modern containers, Docker, and we use configuration management, Chef, and we use Kubernetes. We've started looking into that. So there's a wide range of technologies. We have pretty much everything in the middle as well. So you got to note one thing. Ticketmaster has been the leader in the ticketing industry primarily because all this technological innovations have driven its business innovations. All right. So we are big fans of technology, and there is a lot of investment that goes into building great technical products at Ticketmaster. We have about 20,000 plus virtual machines, and we have a wholesale warehouse type massive data center that hosts all these virtual machines. And So one might wonder, like, how do we operate this type of a massive infrastructure at scale without automation? So obviously, we did build our own automation. This is back in 2002, before Chef and all existed. Our engineers got together and they built an internal configuration management solution that is still being used in some cases in the company. Some of our engineers went to the Chef training a couple of days back, and I saw a tweet in our internal Slack channel, Ticketmaster's internal Slack channel, that, hey, the way Chef does configuration is very similar to our internal tool. And that too speaks a little bit to the type of the engineers we had back then. We also had another set of engineers that tuned the kernel of the operating system, primarily Linux. Now, you might ask, why in the right mind would somebody go and tune an open source code? Well, it forks you out, so you won't get any support, and you can't, because this is a special use case, you can't give it back to the community and get it supported henceforth. But there is a unique reason there's a specific reason for why this happened, and that has to do something with our traffic pattern. Ticketmaster, the website Ticketmaster.com, it has heavy demand at times, and we go from 0 to 40 million transactions in less than minutes. This is a very unique property to Ticketmaster because there are lots of companies out there that have much broader load on average. But at a given time, this type of spiky traffic pattern is kind of unique to us. If we were in the auto industry, we'd be like beating Bugatti Veyron, which is like 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. We'd be faster than any of that, right? Sometimes our traffic pattern is so spiky that we thought we were being DDoSed by some hackers from some university, right? But then it turned out to be our customer traffic. So there are two factors that explain why we have such traffic pattern. Well, obviously, the number one is we have 54 million unique monthly visitors coming to our website. And these are fans, the loyal fans that they keep coming back to us for buying tickets. And then we have something called on-sale events. What's an on-sale event? A little bit of refresher on the ticketing industry. The way ticket sales works is when an artist announces a show and the inventory is made available, it's made available typically at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And then it is made available to that people in that region. And then they open it up at 10 o'clock Central time for that group of people, and then Mountain time and Pacific time at 10. So from the West Coast perspective, you start seeing peak loads at 7 a.m. our time, 8, 9, and 10 a.m. So that's why you see huge traffic patterns. So basically, think of it this way. On-sale events are events where the tickets go on sale for a broader group of population. Usually the venues are smaller, relatively smaller for the demand that some of the artists see. So a lot of people competing for a small set of tickets. So that's what causes this kind of demand spike and crazy, all at the same time, kind of influx traffic. So, and also most of these key on-sale events have happened on Fridays. In other words, every Friday is pretty much like Thanksgiving, Black Friday for us, where you just don't have to fight over a $50 TV, but you can do it at the convenience of your couch. But at the same time, from our perspective, it's like lots of people coming to us to buy our inventory all at the same time. And that results in a traffic pattern that looks something like this. This is an OpNet graph from one of our real on-sale events that happened recently, a couple of weeks back. And as you can see here, at 7 a.m., up until 6:58 or so, there is not much traffic, but 7 a.m. you see a massive spike in traffic. It rises up like it's nobody's business and then comes down a little more gradually as we start serving. So this is one of the reasons why our engineers in the past had to go down to low levels of OSI and start tuning so that there's faster processing of the incoming traffic tickets. All right, so at Ticketmaster we have around 150 products. These are products of different kinds, and there's like 400 plus API or service groupings. And this is pretty much the tech stack. I couldn't include everything. It's already crowded. Hopefully people in the back can see all the letters. So let me start reading one by one. Actually, I'm just kidding. We're not going to go through this one by one. The goal of this slide is just to show that, hey, we have a lot of technology. It's a complicated environment, and we are primarily an open source tech shop. We encourage our staff to use open source technologies primarily. We believe that a corporate cannot solve the problem like the broader community can solve and also keep pace with it. Our resources are limited. So obviously, we use the open source technologies first. We try them out, see if it works, and then we also encourage our engineers to contribute back. In fact, we have engineers on our team who participated in developing Chef, and there's an engineer from the Java Spring team, and so forth. Hopefully this gives you an idea about what Ticketmaster is and what are some of the technical environment attributes. All right, now that the stage is set, let's get into the actual show. So the DevOps performance that I wanted to walk you through is actually a journey that Ticketmaster took. I'm going to describe it as starting at the inception point A, and then I'm going to walk you through a few pivots B, C, and D that kind of drastically changed how we progress along in this DevOps journey. It's a journey of seeking true north. B, C, and D are called pivots. Pivot is actually a lean startup term. We wouldn't get into too much detail on the lean startup principles, but I'm happy to take questions. Pivot is basically a structured course correction designed to test a business hypothesis or a business assumption. So this journey is not drawn to scale. It's actually just to show how we progress along in our DevOps maturity model. And point A is roughly 10 years back, and then I'll be bringing you back to where we stand today. All right, so the journey started in A. It was pretty flat, and then we went through it's soap opera style journey. There's lots of ups and downs and happiness and sadness along the path. And then we went to the peak of confusion. We thought things worked, and then turned out it didn't work very well. And then obviously I'm from Bollywood, so I'll definitely end with happy smile and dance. All right. So in this presentation, you obviously kind of figured out that it's not about the journey or how it started sad and ended happy. It's more about what we picked along the way that is going to help you take it to your environment and then do something with it. So hopefully I could share something meaningful with you today. Okay, so let's break this journey down into 4 components, 4 phases. So first one is pre-DevOps, and then I have given names for the others as well. And we go from red to green, indicating bad to good, right? Okay, so now, like I said, the point A started roughly 10 years back, and as I described, we have a chef-like internal configuration management solution, we have kernel tuning, we have smart engineers that could really solve any complicated problem. Well, we started building all these internal tools and kind of started falling in love with what we built. Rather than the problem we were trying to solve, the product that we created happened to be our babies, and we started caring for them more. So we started stagnating, meaning we fell victim to our own success. Like in many industries, even in technology field, if you are not rising, you're falling, right? So we started not investing in modernizing our technology, and therefore we started falling. And that explains the direction of the era that you see here, and then pre-DevOps era. And there are several attributes to this particular phase. I'm sure most of you know this, so let me quickly skip through them. Like any dysfunctional organization that does not build products collaboratively, we also had Dev and Ops that was building a tall wall of confusion in between Dev and Ops, right? And the developers would finish their product, they would throw it across over to the Ops with some labeling on it and some runbook, and then the Ops guys would look at it and go, that doesn't make any sense. Let me throw it back to them because the runbook doesn't have the proper punctuation marks. Right, so they send it back to the devs, and the devs then look at it, and then they keep finger pointing at each other. This results in a lot of wasted cycles, and lots of rework, and therefore eventually you don't end up producing quality products quickly at a reasonable cost. So this was one. Then we had tech debt. I mean, it's a decades-old technology company. We've all kinds of versions of technology, so we obviously have tech debt. Like any other debt, it either grows or it falls, right? So if you don't invest actively in cleaning up your tech debt, then it's going to build up and it's going to exponentially impact your productivity down the line. That's what happened to us as well. Obviously, we had long cycle times, meaning the time from code commit or even the requirements definition to all the way to a customer seeing that feature in production was getting longer and longer. So if an environment is characterized by these three things, then obviously what's going to happen is we're going to get our butts kicked by somebody, right? Miraculously for Ticketmaster, that's exactly what happened. We did get our butts kicked, but this time it is by a bunch of nimble, agile, small startups. So these companies started coming our way, and then they started eating our market share away from us. And Ticketmaster couldn't compete with the pace at which the features were getting released by these small companies, and we were starting to get concerned about that from a business perspective. And that's when we reached the point B, or the pivot B. So in this deep pit of sorrow, we had to make a decision. It's a sink or swim moment, right? So you either change your ways of operating and get software out there quickly that meets customer needs, or you kind of continue to lose your market share. Ticketmaster has been the leader in the industry, so that's something very tough to swallow, obviously. Okay, so we attempted DevOps, and a few examples of our first attempt are shown here. Obviously, we all know that multiple silos is a bad thing, great. So we said, let's go and build a cross-functional team where the developers and the testers and the operations folks, and they just get together and build. They have a common goal, and all they need to do is quickly get the product out to production, as well as keep it running it in production. It just works. It's expected to work. Well, that's great. And the next one is I talked about cycle times. One of the deeper problems of cycle times was that we were not taking any feedback from our internal customers, our development teams. It's not like we did not have any build pipeline or automation that will reduce cycle time. It's just that the automation that we put in place did not meet the developer or the development or the delivery team needs. So when they came to us, we'd be like, okay, we already know what you guys want because we've done this so many times in previous companies and whatnot. So we know exactly what you want. I'm going to build it. Obviously, they did not adopt the solution, and it continued to have poor cycle time. Okay, and some of the folks even quoted Steve Jobs and said, customers don't really understand what they want. So as I present these things, I also want to caution you that these solutions, even though it worked for us, may not work exactly for you. So you might want to take these findings and then understand your environment and make it your own. So there's got to be some customization required here. All right, so we made this feedback problem disappear, and we started listening to the development and the delivery teams, and we got their perspectives in. So this way we were able to drive adoption of the build pipeline automation that we had put in place, and we started to reduce cycle time. Well, the results are shown in the DevOps journey tracker that I have here. We started making good progress in cycle time and even the customers' NPS scores. This is what I would call the functional domain, meaning we are able to operate in a sustainable manner, and we are able to deliver products as planned. Well, almost as planned, but kind of functional. A lot of companies are stuck in this place. This is like, if it's okay, but it's not quite good. But then on B dash, or the point that I've marked in the middle, something started to happen. Our performance started to degrade. We were not that productive anymore, and we were confused as to why is that happening. So we dug a lot deeper. We conducted some root cause analysis and figured that, all right, things that we thought were good solutions turned out to be bad. Like, how is that? Like, well, we talked about cross-functional teams, right? If you know Ticketmaster, it's a very siloed organization. So we have massive teams that are broken down into specializations. Meaning, we used to have, let me list all the teams in one breath, see if that's possible. So we used to have DC ops team, a data center team, a cloud team, an infrastructure development team, a platform team, a development team, a QA team, business analyst team, and so on and so forth, right? So we have all these teams, and they are specialized in their areas, and they don't know about the technical difficulties of the other domains. So now you have to form a cross-functional team. How do you go about doing that? So we picked one from each team and then said, okay, you guys work together. You're the cross-functional team. And then for redundancy, when some guy gets sick or takes a vacation or whatever, we just want to double the number just for high availability, right? And the team size became massive. Jeff Bezos' point was like 2 pizza-sized team. Ours was more like 10 pizza-sized team, and it's also extra large pizzas. So this wasn't going to work. The team was so big that the team members would not know each other's name. It took a couple of weeks to get familiar with the people's names. The funny thing is, the card wall was so long, we used to call it the Great Wall of Cards. So anyways, it was chaotic, it was dysfunctional. It started to get dysfunctional. So we had to break the teams down into like smaller teams. So we experimented with a couple of models. We tried Scrum of Scrums model, and we also tried independent parallel teams. And we kind of settled for something in the middle, wherein we had the teams broken up into infrastructure as a service, and then that'll serve the next team, which is platform as a service. So they add their component, and then it goes on to the product delivery teams. And between these teams, there were unwritten contracts that, okay, I promise to deliver this feature to you, or I'll give you this code base with this functionality so you can build against this interface. So we looked at the microservices architecture and the best design patterns out there to enable, to learn from some of those things. For example, we have tolerant reader, we have consumer-driven contracts, and those type of design patterns in microservices domain. We just adopted the same thing for team designs. So the results were course corrected, and it started to get a little better. Then the next one is listening to perspectives. Like, what's wrong with listening to different perspectives, right? Everybody should do that. But we started listening so much that we kind of became DevOps psychologists, if you will. So we started listening too much, and we wanted to get everybody's perspectives. We wanted to solve the problem for everybody. And we figured out that a single solution is not going to meet every need. People are going to have different needs. So we said, okay, let's launch an initiative to really understand our customers better. You cannot have 10 different customers and all of them are exactly equally important to you. It's just not realistic. A deeper understanding of the customer segments and what their needs are helps you understand and prioritize how important each customer is, and then walk the list down. Within each customer, again, there are different requirements with different priorities, things that solve bigger problems for the customer and things that they just like to have. So we had to break it down so that we produce incremental product feature releases that'll really help, and have a better, deeper customer understanding helped us with this. All right, so at this point, we reached the point C, or the pivot C. Pivot C is characterized by, I would say, we are DevOpsy in the sense that, yeah, most of the companies try this by reading quick books like DevOps for Dummies or Get DevOps in 72 hours. So we bought all those books, read all those quick tricks. We leveraged from benefits of all the low-hanging fruits out there. We've gotten cross-functional teams. We started using CIs, basic things, right? We saw results, but at the same time, we were kind of not feeling well at the core. We were feeling like, how's this going to turn around a 40-year-old company? How's this going to make it nimble such that we can deliver products quickly like a startup would, right? So this concern started to raise. We knew that there's got to be more change required for us to launch into this contributing phase. What is that? How is that different from functional phase? So contributing phase is somewhere where you not only operate and deliver the products as per plan or within budget, but you also understand and think from customer's value perspective, how much value you're adding to the customer, and therefore you're delivering it. So this type of value-oriented thinking needed a much deeper, broader change. Okay, so change is required, but how much change is the question, right? Well, it is New Year's time. We all make resolutions. So let's talk about a quick resolution. Apparently, in a recent survey, they say that health and fitness are top of the list. That's the category where most of us make our resolutions, followed by career growth. Obviously, with this picture up there, I'm not going to talk about career growth, right? So I'm going to talk about health and fitness. Let's say we all know that eating an apple a day is going to give us great health. It's going to keep the doctor away, whatever. But is it going to get a physical transformation like you expect, if that's what you're looking for? I was talking to my friend, and he said, okay, if I let go of my other six-pack every Friday, will I get this six-pack? Well, not quite, not quite. You have to change your eating habits, your sleeping habits. You have to exercise regularly. You have to start counting calories and macros and whatnot. The entire lifestyle has to be changed. It has to be a much deeper and broader change. All right? So the point here is minor tweaks don't produce major results. They really don't. If you want something big, then you have to go big. All right. So we said that we wanted a more cultural organizational change. And that's when we discovered the culture of promises. Okay, what is a culture of promise? Let's say you have a company vision. I'll break it down first and then I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a company, every company has a vision. So you break that vision down into strategic promises. And each promise then gets further broken down into functional promises. And then when it goes to the team, it gets broken down into tactical promises. Let's look at an example. Let's say our vision is to connect lots of fans to great experiences. And if the strategic promise that maps to that is something like, okay, I promise to make Ticketmaster.com the favorite ticketing site for the fans. You could break that down into smaller promises like I promise to provide the best online and mobile user experience for our customers, which could further be broken down into tactical ones like, okay, I promise to develop interactive site maps. Basically, it's a feature that allows you to view the auditorium or the stage from each seat. So it's a feature. And it could be other operational promises like I promise to build a site that always works, just simply works, a high uptime. All right, so now you see that we have taken this one top-level vision and kind of broken down that into multiple hierarchical, smaller, more actionable promises. What this does is there is several benefits to this. First one, it aligns the entire organization towards with a common goal up at the top. So if the CEO and the senior leadership team decides to change the direction in the next quarter or next year, then it's easier to make change at the top and then it kind of trickles down to the bottom. Everybody is now thinking about value and customer more importantly than they are thinking about their products or the code or their process. Everybody is metrics driven in this framework. And more importantly, you'd have seen this in studies, the best way to improve team morale is to make people feel like they're part of a bigger problem, right? So this helps the team members feel that way. Everybody, even though the person who's setting up a virtual machine is just responding to the tickets for virtual machines on his queue, even he now is able to think of the virtual machine as, okay, this is going to help me deliver the interactive seat map feature, which is going to tie to the best online experience, which is going to tie to the making Ticketmaster.com the favorite site. So the promises kind of roll up. Every task is now more meaningful. All right, so we tried this, and then we got excellent results, definitely excellent results. Our turnaround times were faster. We not only were able to deliver the products as promised, but we also understood whether it really helped the customers or not. So business value delivery was happening on a continuous basis. And then we reached point D. The point D is not necessarily a pivot. It's just an accelerator that brought us into the next phase, is transformational. Meaning, in this phase, we were so tuned to thinking with customers in our center, so that, and not with our product or code or process as the center of our ecosystem, that we are able to quickly pivot if we need to, based on company strategic decision on time, yet deliver to the diverse customer needs. We were able to own the customer's problem and always be keen on solving customers' problem rather than the products that we build. The term product manager is a misnomer, as some of us know. If you call somebody a product owner, then after a while they start loving their product and what they created, right? But if you call them a problem owner of the customer and their goal is to solve the problem for the customer, then the focus is different. Now they are putting the customer in the center of the equation, and they produce whatever products, whatever it may be, version 1, 2, 3, whatever, to solve the problem for the customer. So this is a mind shift. So because our organization was already set up for this structure by this time, because we have been practicing the culture of promises for a while, we started seeing some cool transformations that were organic. For example, let me give you a few examples. So we made a promise to say, okay, let's free developers from the constraints of on-prem infrastructure. Well, when they have a need, they submit a ticket, they wait for X number of days, depending on the SLA, and they get a server, but at that time they don't have it properly connected. No, they have to restart the whole thing. It causes too much delays. So we don't want to constrain the developers. So the team now comes up with this idea of, okay, why bother with this massive infrastructure and all the constraints here? Why not just go to AWS or web services, right? So that's exactly what the recommendation that came out of the team. It is groundbreaking for Ticketmaster because, like I mentioned, we have a massive infrastructure and we have a big team that runs this. And for them to accept the fact that, okay, we're going to go to the cloud because it delivers better value to the customer, that is significant. That is a huge shift. The next promise I wanted to point out is reducing cycle time of the software releases. So we said we'll build a continuous delivery pipeline. Now, as you know, continuous delivery pipeline has several stages. You check in the code, and then it runs the unit tests, and then integration tests, and then it spins up an environment using scripted automation, and then it runs the user acceptance tests, and then it takes on to further performance testing or security scanning or whatever. And the code ends up in production, all in a fully automated fashion. But it's the same series of steps that takes your code through all these steps, right? Now, we built a framework. We are in the process of building it. We're building a framework that lets people plug in their own custom build script in there and their own unit test frameworks in there. But we still have that high-level unified build pipeline or the continuous delivery pipeline for the entire set of 150 products. Now, what does this offer? Now, you have a common scale using which you could drive tech maturity. Well, how's that? Now, you could say, let's say all the teams are using the same build pipeline, continuous delivery pipeline, sorry. Now, Team A might have 95% coverage in the unit test step. Well, you could measure that because it's the same standard pipeline, right? But the Team B has only 45%. And you could do the measurement and use metrics for the various stages and throw up a dashboard that says, okay, Team A has higher level of maturity in adopting or practicing continuous delivery because their coverage is better, they have more automation, their environment creation is scripted, and the cycle time is highest, and so forth. So you could use that as a model to motivate the rest of the teams and drive everybody towards a higher level of tech maturity. The next one is we promised to eliminate environmental inconsistencies. Obviously, Docker came up, so we wanted to containerize our applications. So besides the obvious benefit, okay, eliminates environment inconsistencies, we have this other unique benefit that comes out of this. Remember, we talked about migrating our applications to AWS. The team not only proposed that, they came up with this idea of creating a cloud enablement team that'll go ahead and build a self-service AWS onboarding kit that includes things like CloudFormation templates, the VPC layout, and the connectivity all established, and proper recommendations for technology choices within AWS product. Let's say it's a package that's easily consumable for the product teams. Now, each one of the teams can just go through that and get their products up in the cloud. So this enables us to move faster to AWS. On top of that, if we Dockerize the applications on the on-prem infrastructure while it's running in our private cloud, then it's much more easier to migrate to the cloud. So Docker was, again, a beautiful transformation that we recently figured out. So anyways, so this pretty much sums up the our journey in this direction. And as you can see, we have come from all the way being pre-DevOps, in the pre-DevOps domain, to now in a transformational phase where we are willing to see past the technologies that we'll use and look at what's more important at the end of the day, which is customers and customer value. So that's it. That's pretty much what our journey is. If it were a Bollywood movie, this is the place where they roll the credits and sing the happy song and dance. But I'm going to summarize the key principles for you to take with you. The two things mainly. First one is automation drives throughput, right? So you don't want manual operations in your day-to-day operation. Things that repeat most often, obviously you want them automated because you get the best bang for the buck. So you drive for more automation as much as possible. And then automation, if you produce crap, then automation just produces more crap. So you need the feedback loop, right? The feedback improves the quality of your throughput. Now, there are a couple of examples, different examples that I want to give. The first one is seeking feedback improves empathy for the dev and the ops team to understand each other's perspectives. If dev teams understood how difficult it is to maintain and operate a software after it goes to production, if they understood and had that empathy, then they would definitely build applications that are HA, easier to operate, easier to back up and whatnot, easier to monitor, right? So asking for feedback improves empathy. The other one is we should always seek to use operations as an input to close the loop into the strategy. For example, product managers, when they create a feature and make a business case for building a feature or a sub-product or even a big product, they make a lot of assumptions. They say, okay, if I build this feature, the customers will come to this website and click this button so many times, and therefore expect so many dollars to come out of this every quarter. So they make these assumptions in the beginning of the project. And then we go ahead, get funding approved, and then we build the product goes to production. But very few companies actually take actual measurements that will validate the assumptions that were made in the ROI phase and feed them back to the product management. Product management pretty much runs blind. They rely on quarterly finance numbers to actually find out much later on whether their assumptions that they made in the first place were right or not. So operations teams can help enable that to close the loop. Okay, how many of you know this guy? This is Alvin Toffler. He's one of the famous American writer, and he's also a futuristic thinker. He's written several things about like revolution in terms of technology and communications. He's the guy that said, change is not a mere necessity of life. He said, change is life. But the thing that caught my attention was this one. He says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but is those who cannot learn and relearn. What it is this is an age where the smartest guy or the loudest guy in the room is not going to win. It is those guys that can quickly learn and adapt to the changes that they see that's going to win. To sum it up, I just want to say that when you go back, please encourage and try to create a culture of learning where every team kind of feels like it's safe to make some honest new mistakes as they try to push the boundaries of technology. Because when the environment is not safe or it is not suitable for learning, what happens is then engineers start repeating the same thing that they did yesterday because it's safer, and you don't get much learning in that process. I hope I answered some of your questions. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take more questions. Go ahead. Yeah? Yeah. It's a great question. Let me repeat it for the recording. The question is, so you showed a wide range of technologies in the tech stack, and as you do automation, are you trying to work towards converging that tech set? Obviously, yes, because we do find that it is very wasteful to have like duplicate technologies. For example, you don't want Chef and Puppet both running in the environment, right? We have an internal config management tool, like I mentioned, and now we are starting to adopt Chef. So one is going to replace the other. Obviously, we're going to use open source tools. So that's the direction we're going. But it takes a lot of commitment, and because we have 150 products or so, it takes a while to get rid of legacy technologies and replace them with modern ones. But that's the direction. Yeah, these cross-functional teams usually are self-organizing, and they usually drive the technological decision making. There is we don't practice the chief architect that reviews every single design and approves the design. We don't practice that anymore. Instead, we have communities of practices, meaning the architects who are interested in a particular topic, they get together on a regular basis and they discuss what's the best practice, what's the modern ways to do this. And they talk peer-to-peer and make decisions. Most of the time, all the technical evaluation as well as selection is done by the corresponding teams. Yeah, please. So there are several different frameworks that enable one to implement the culture of promises. One of the frameworks that we adopted is ThoughtWorks Lean Value Tree Framework. You can look it up online. It basically goes around by breaking down the vision into strategic promises in exactly the way I showed. But they have constructs and proper artifacts in place that helps you, and they have a step-by-step of rolling out such a program into your company. We had to train a lot of people on what lean value tree is, and we got a lot of pushback. To be honest with you, not everybody's you're not gonna have the same 100% team past this cultural rollout. There's going to be some resistance. There's going to be some churn. You got to plan for that and be more realistic. Yeah, yeah. So there were two questions that you asked. The first one is, did you just go across and like instead of one team, did you go deeper into a product, or did you just say everybody just go ahead and use this? That's one. The second one is a question. Actually, the second question, let me ask you again once I answer the first one. It depends on the solution we were trying to solve. Like for AWS migration, as one example, we want all the products to migrate to the cloud, and we have an aggressive timeline to make that happen. So we created this cloud enablement team that creates this onboarding self-service package. So how do we know this package is going to work? So we partnered with one of development team whose technology is suitable to be the first ones. And we help them migrate. We are helping them migrate to the cloud. As we are migrating them, we're creating this self-service package, which is our product. Now we're going to go take another product, which is on the other side of the spectrum, and test the same self-service toolkit, right? At that point, we know that, okay, two different diverse use cases have worked, so I'm going to now open the gates and say, okay, product teams, just go. It helps you just self-migrate your own product. See you in the cloud. So it depends on what actually we're trying to roll out. We've tried different things, and this is what seemed to work for this occasion. Could you please repeat your second question? If you remember the page slide where I showed the hierarchy of promises, note that I didn't start it off from the bottom. I went from the top, and that is how the model works. Like you cannot have a bunch of teams trying to drive this cultural change upward. It's going to be extremely painful and won't even go anywhere. And we have 80 plus development teams. So it's not going to go much further. Our change, fortunately, happened from the top. So it was the team of senior leadership executives sitting in the room wondering, okay, these minor changes, minor tweaks that we are doing is not going to give us that much results or that much cultural change. Let's do something big. Let's go all in. And that's when we brought in the lean value tree framework. So fortunately, it's from top down. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Precisely, yeah. Yeah, it needed a bunch of these little school of fishes out there trying to eat the shark. We needed that kick in the back to like get something good going. Please. Yeah. So very good question. How did you define the KPIs and how do you go about like tracking and making sure it's in the process? You're constantly looking at it. Like I mentioned, the lean value tree framework does exactly that. In fact, we have several artifacts that we identify the goal leads. When I say these are different, the strategic promise leads, the functional promise leads, and the tactical promise leads. They are supposed to fill a template. Like this is a framework on how you roll out, right? That template has one of the entries in there is KPIs, success factors, right? So the team leads, they have to think through, okay, how am I going to deliver this value? And then they have to come up with ways to measure it. Every cycle that we review that particular goal or the project, we will review the actual metrics, and we have to show, the teams are supposed to show the trend or the numerical change and progression. It's okay if, I mean, it's not possible to expect the graph to be always like a hockey curve graph, right? Everything is improving. It's not. The goal of looking at the metrics is mainly to find out whether the methodology is working or not. It's not really to make sure that it's working. So if it doesn't work, totally fine. You just move on to the next idea and see if that works. So that's the culture of learning I was talking about. Currently, we don't have any special tools that captures this. In fact, this is a new framework. So there's not many out-of-the-box tools out there that helps you do it. We are currently just using Excel at this point. It just works. Sorry. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So A is like 10 years back, right? And then B started roughly 3 years back. And then you could think of it as 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, right? So the A to B is the one that we had. Like I showed the graph like dropping so fast, it was not that bad. It was more gradual. In fact, those are the tough ones to track because every day you're looking at the mirror, you didn't lose that much weight, but then if you take your picture from 2 years back, you were like 10. It's like, what? So that's what happened. You don't realize the gradual changes as obviously as you do the drastic changes. All right. Thanks a lot for coming.